When I was 12, I was still pretty new to my dad's neighborhood. I'd moved in with him 2 years earlier, and aside from a few classmates, I didn't know many people. The only family I really spent any time with was one my dad was friends with, a single mom with 3 kids. Her middle child, a girl a couple of years older than me, wasn't someone I'd call a best friend, but we knew each other. We shared the same loose circle, bumped into each other at the park, sometimes sat together at school events. She had a younger brother who was always tagging along, and the 3 of us would occasionally end up in the same place, even if we weren't exactly planning it. That winter, just a week before Christmas, something happened that stayed with me ever since. It was a Friday night, and my friend Rob told me he was heading over to her house to hang out. I didn't go. I was stuck at home finishing up homework. Rob later told me that when he got there, it was just her and her younger brother. Their mom was at work. Now, here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. Their mom worked with a woman who had been helping out someone in need. Through conversations, she learned this woman had a sister who'd been in a mental health facility for some time and had been released not long before. That night, just after it got dark, there was a knock at the door. Rob said the girl smiled and said, "That's my mom." She recognized the knock. Apparently, her mom had this little pattern she'd use when coming home. Without even looking through the window or asking who it was, she opened the door. Rob wasn't supposed to be there. Her mom had rules about visitors when she was at work, so the moment he saw it wasn't her mom, he panicked. He didn't even take a good look at who was standing there. He just climbed out the nearest window and sprinted back to his house down the street. When I think about it now, I can't get past that detail. He had no idea what was about to happen. He didn't even think there was danger. The person at the door wasn't her mother. It was the sister of that woman her mom had been helping, the one recently released. She'd apparently figured out the family's address and through casual conversation, learned her mother's work schedule. From here, the details get blurry, even for me. I've heard different versions. What I do know is that at some point after that door opened, things turned terrifying. The younger brother managed to slip out of the house and run to the neighbors to call the police. By the time help arrived, it was too late. My friend was gone. I remember my dad telling me I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. I remember walking past their house days later, Christmas decorations still up, lights in the windows, and knowing that whatever had happened inside was something I'd never be able to picture without feeling sick. And I remember realizing something that's haunted me ever since. If I'd gone over with Rob that night, I might have been there when that knock came. I might have been the one to open the door. When I was 4 or 5, my parents had just separated. My mom had moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the first floor of a quiet complex. It was the middle of summer, the kind where the air at night still feels heavy, and even though I had my own room, I almost always slept in her bed when I stayed with her. Our bedrooms were across from each other at the end of a short hallway, doors facing directly. That night, my mom had the window open behind the bed to let in a breeze. The headboard was pushed right up against it, so the night air was drifting in, carrying the faint smell of warm asphalt from the parking lot. I remember waking up suddenly, though I couldn't tell you why. No loud noise, no nightmare. I just opened my eyes and sat up. Our bedroom door was open, giving me a partial view of the hallway and my room across from us. And that's when I noticed our cat. He was sitting perfectly still in the doorway, his back arched slightly, tail twitching. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring into my bedroom, the one across the hall. It was strange, because our cat almost always slept curled up at the foot of the bed. Seeing him there, so tense, instantly made the room feel colder. Then, without breaking his gaze, he walked into my bedroom. A soft meow drifted back toward me, almost like he was calling someone, or warning me. I turned to my mom and whispered her name, nudging her shoulder. She stirred, half asleep, and asked what was wrong. It couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 seconds from the time I looked away from the door to when we both looked back. But in that time, the cat was gone, and there was a man standing in the hallway. He wasn't rushing or stumbling. He was moving slowly, stepping out of my bedroom like he belonged there. His head was angled toward the floor, but even in the dim light, I could see the dark outline of his shoulders, the solid shape of someone who was not supposed to be in our home. What happened next is still a blur in my memory. My mom didn't hesitate. She grabbed me so fast I barely had time to react, lifted me, and pushed me straight through the open window behind the bed. We were on the first floor, so it was only a short drop into the damp grass below. She followed immediately, landing hard beside me. We started screaming, not words, just loud, panicked noise, until lights in other apartments flicked on. Someone called 911. The police arrived quickly, but when they searched the apartment, they found no signs of forced entry. The only thing wrong was that the front door was unlocked. My mom swore she had locked it, deadbolt and chain, before going to bed. The officers said maybe she had forgotten. She insisted she hadn't. A week later, she was cleaning the kitchen. There was a small closet that held the water heater, one we rarely opened. When she did that day, she froze. Sitting on the floor inside was a spiral-bound notebook, a pair of worn gloves, and some gum wrappers. The notebook had names written inside, none we recognized, along with small, rough sketches of objects and rooms. The police came back. They couldn't prove anything, but they told us their theory. Whoever the man was, he had probably been inside our apartment before that night, maybe hiding in that closet, waiting for us to fall asleep. I still think about that cat sometimes. The way he sat in the doorway, staring. The way he left the room just before the man appeared. It's possible he wasn't calling to me at all that night. He was warning me to get out. For as long as I can remember, there's been an abandoned house right next to mine. When I was a kid, it was just part of the scenery, a sagging roofline, overgrown lawn, and blinds that never moved. My parents told me the owner had moved out to California decades ago and never sold it. 25 years, it sat untouched. No repairs, no visitors, no for sale sign. Just still. But the strangest part? The power still worked. I know because on some nights, I'd see a faint light from inside. Not bright, just enough to make you wonder who was paying the bill. It wasn't until I was older that curiosity got the better of me. One cold evening, I grabbed a flashlight and a pair of gloves and decided to see what was inside. The front door was locked, so I pushed open a side window and slid through. The air hit me first, that thick, stale smell of dust and old wood. I started with the basement. The moment my flashlight beam swept across the room, I froze. Against the far wall was a grand piano. The wood was scratched, the keys yellowed, but when I pressed one, it still played, though badly out of tune. The rest of the basement looked like it belonged in a museum. Dusty military gear from World War II stacked neatly in crates. A framed Elvis poster that looked authentic, signed in the bottom corner. Old photographs, a cracked guitar leaning against a box of sheet music. In one corner, I found a broken picture frame. The glass shattered, but the photo's still there. A man and woman in wedding clothes smiling in front of a church. I wondered who they were and why this entire basement was like a frozen moment in someone's life. Upstairs on the main floor, the strangeness got heavier. The kitchen table still had plates set out, but the food was long molded over. The fridge was stocked with rotting leftovers. Pots and pans sat on the stove with fossilized remains of meals. Half-empty beer bottles were frozen solid inside. And yet, the lights were on. In the living room, an unmade bed took up most of the space, the blankets thrown aside like someone had left in the middle of the night. I told myself I'd check upstairs quickly, then leave. The staircase creaked under my weight, each step echoing just a little too much in the silence. At the top, the hallway split off into a couple of rooms. My flashlight caught peeling wallpaper, more old furniture, and dust thick enough to write in with your finger. That's when I heard it, crying. It was faint. Muffled, almost like it was coming from behind a closed door, but it was definitely human. Slow, uneven sobs. I turned off my flashlight, thinking maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But in the darkness, the sound was even clearer. It was coming from one of the side rooms. I didn't wait to find out more. I backed down the stairs, careful not to make noise, slipped through the same window I'd come in, and didn't look back until I was inside my own house. I never told anyone about it. But sometimes at night, when the air is still, I think I can hear faint crying drifting through the walls from next door. And the worst part? The light in that upstairs window still turns on from time to time.